All right, this is lesson 6.1 of a unit called Similar Triangles. It's called Ratios and Proportions. So the goal today is I can write ratios and proportions to solve problems. I don't think this will be new to you. The context that we use them in will be new because we're going to use some geometry with them. But I think you did these in 8th grade math and probably in Algebra 1. So let's see what you remember. So first example, the ratio of the measures of the angles in triangle ABC is 3 to 4 to 5. So what does that mean to be in that ratio of 3 to 4 to 5? Well, what that means is that if I were to reduce down the fractions of the first smallest angle, the medium-sized angle, and the largest angle, they would all have a common denominator that canceled down to the point where you'd have 3, 4, and 5. For example, if I multiply each of these by 2, I get 6, 8, and 10. Well, are those three the measures of the angles of the triangle? Well, no, they can't be, because if you add them together, you get 24, not 180. So maybe we just take them times 10. So maybe it's 30, 40, and 50. Well, that makes 70, 120. So I'm getting closer, but what you don't want to have to do is continue to kind of guess at what multiple of 3, 4, and 5 they are. So what we're going to do is we're just going to label the angles 3x, 4x, and 5x. And then we know that 3x plus 4x plus 5x has to equal 180. So just add the x's together because they're alike. That's 7 plus 5, 12x equals 180. I'm going to divide 180 by 12. And I get x equals 15. So what are the measures of the angles then? Well, 3 times 15 is 45 degrees. 4 times 15 is 60 degrees. And 5 times 15 is 75 degrees. And those will add up to 180. And if you notice, they all have a factor of 15 in common. And if you divided them by 15, it would take you right back to this ratio, 3, 4, 5. Okay? Now you try this one. Stop the video, write a good equation, and solve it. Well, this time it gives us the ratio of the measures of the sides is 3 to 3 to 8. And then it has to tell us the perimeter. It doesn't have to tell us the sum of the angles like in the previous example because we know it's all already 180. But when they're doing the sides, they're going to have to give you the perimeter in some way, okay? So in this case, I'm going to just take my triangle, and I'm going to call this side 3x, and this side 3x, and this side 8x. That's the ratio of 3 to 3 to 8. And I know that 3x plus 3x plus 8x must equal the 392. So we're looking for what multiple of these will produce numbers that add up to 392. And so to do that, we just set up this equation. So 3 and 3 make 6. 6 and 8 make 14. And I'll divide 392 by 14. And I get x equals 28. So if I take each of these, 3, 3, and 8, and multiply by 28, it's going to give me the length of that side. So this one's 84, so is this one. And then 8 times 28 gives me the longest side down here, 224. And so what I've got is I've got this triangle with side lengths that add up to 392. Now, can someone tell me what's wrong with this picture? There's something going on here that we studied back in the previous unit. Look at 84 and 84. What do those add up to? They only add up to 168, but this side's 224. So these really couldn't form a triangle at all, could they? But it didn't stop us from at least practicing how we would find side lengths, right? That doesn't change. But yeah, this really, these three lengths, this should probably be like 5, 5, and 8. That'd be better. That'd give us an actual triangle then. So, all right, moving on here. Here's a proportion for us to solve. I don't know if you remember how to solve them, so I'll just show you that it's cross multiplication. So you're going to multiply this way and write it here, and then multiply this way and write it over here, and you're going to set those products equal. So 5 times x is 5x, and 5 times 3 is 15. So you have to multiply the 5 by both the x and the 3. Then going the other way, 2 times 4x is 8x, and now you probably know how to solve it from there. So we have to subtract 5x. I always move the smaller one. That's going to give me 3x equals 15, and I'll divide by 3. And x comes out to be 5, which is what they wanted. They just want us to solve it, figure out what x is, okay? Let's see if we can set up a proportion to solve. Okay, so Fernando conducted a survey of 50 students driving to school, found that 28 owned their cars. So in that sentence, they're comparing two different things. So they're comparing two different things about students. What are the two things that they're comparing about students? Well, we've got students driving, and we have students who own their car. So that's what's being compared. So we're going to write a proportion. And it doesn't matter which way you set this up, but I'm going to put driving on top of my proportion, and I'm going to put owning on the bottom of my proportion. And here's my proportion, which a proportion just sets two ratios equal to each other. That's all that means. And so what I've got is I've got the survey results here, and then I've got the whole school. So in this fraction, I'm going to put the survey numbers. 50 students drove and 28 owned. Well, in the whole school, there's 755 drove, but we don't know how many own. So now we're going to cross multiply. X times 50 is 50x. And 28 times 755 is 21,140. And I'm going to divide that by 50. And I get 422.8 students. What should I answer? What should my answer be? 422.8? Or, you can't have 0.8 people. You got to think about what your domain is here. Your domain is human beings, and so you can only count them in whole numbers, right? So I'm going to round that up to 423. Okay? So you see how we did that? I figured out what the sentence was comparing. It was comparing students who drove and students who owned. And it doesn't matter if you had flipped that over. You could put owned on top and drove on the bottom. As long as you adjusted these two over here, it'll come out with the same answer, okay? And then I had survey results in one fraction and the whole school in the other fraction. And then I cross-multiplied to solve, okay? You guys try this one. Stop the video and give it a whirl and then jump back in. Okay, so what do we have here? What are we comparing? We're comparing netted butterflies to tagged butterflies. So I'm going to put netted on top and tagged on the bottom. And I have my sample space. That's when the students went out. Okay, and then we're going to have a prediction over here. So in our sample space, we had 48 netted and 3 tagged. We want to know out of 100 netted, how many are tagged. So 48 times x is 48x. 3 times 100 is 300. I'm going to divide 300 by 48. And it says 6.25. What should I answer? Hopefully you're saying 6 butterflies, because you can't have you can't have 0.25 butterflies, okay? My T's don't look very good there, do they? Okay. All right, so let's just do some. The ratio of nargles to Raxburts is 3 to 7. There are 48 nargles. How many Raxburts are there? So we've got nargles over Raxburts. And we've got our sample space, or our ratio of 3/7. And then we want to know if there's 48 nargles, how many Raxburts. 3x equals 7 times 48. I'm going to divide by 3. Sometimes you don't even have to use the calculator. you could be like, well, 3 divided into 48 goes 26 times, right? No, 16 times. And then 7 times 16, 70 plus 42, 102, 112? Yeah, maybe I do need my calculator. 112. Okay. I'm going to let you try each one of these, and then I'll turn the video back on, and we'll see how it's solved, okay? So you just pause the video and try them on your own. So on this one, you need to make sure you go back and plug it in. 2 times x is going to be the smallest side, obviously, because we can't have a length that's negative, so it's going to be positive, and it'll be the smallest. Okay. So that's just 1 times 30, 2 times 30, and 3 times 30 gave me 90. Six plus 4 means there are 10 pieces of candy. That's where I got the 10 in this ratio. There are 100 pieces of candy. How many are Skittles? So I had to adjust based on what the second sentence was comparing, candy and Skittles instead of jelly beans and Skittles. So now this is 10x equals 600 and x equals 60. Okay. Just remember when you cross multiply, in this case, because these two are binomials, there's 2 terms. You have to multiply the 8 by both of them. The 8, the x and the 5, the x and the negative 5, and then the 7 times the x and the 7 times the negative 4. Okay, you'll find form, ratios, and proportions, and you can work on those. I think there's 10 questions there.